Why was this actually such a fucking mission to set up? I swear to God, I was on the brink of tears. No, something worse. Why do I look orange? So when I first started my channel, like back in 2019, I did a video about growing up with gay parents and it did really well. However, I don't know who I was being in that video. I was being someone really bizarre. I was a lot younger. I didn't have all of the terminology and as much of the life experience that I do now. It was 2 years ago, maybe 3. So I want to do an updated video mostly for LGBTQ parents and just anyone who's interested in my experience growing up with gay parents, because I feel like it's something that's not talked about enough. I never see videos on YouTube, TikTok, anything of people discussing their experience. I've already had a coffee today, so just bear that in mind. I'm Ella J, I'm 20 years old, and I grew up with 2 mothers and not knowing who my father was. Yeah, I know. You ever heard that one before? My parents met 7 years prior to having me, I believe, maybe 6 or 7 years. My biological mother always wanted a child. My non-biological mum was a bit, how's it going, on the fence, which obviously changed as I was born, because I'm a hoot. My biological mum's name is Pia, and my non-biological mum's name is Deb. So in my eyes, they're both my mother, regardless of biological connection. It's not like I have less of a connection with one than I do the other. They both raised me. But saying non-biological mum and biological mum, I hope will make this more digestible. So they decided to have me, and they went through a process called intrauterine insemination, which is not, despite popular belief, it is not IVF. So the difference between IUI and IVF is that IUI happens inside. So the sperm is directly inserted. It's a bit how you're going, isn't it? It's directly inserted, whereas IVF happens outside. That's the process that my mum went through in order to have me. In doing so, she went through an anonymous donor. When she was having me, she only got limited information about my donor, and she did not get his name. I don't think she got his age. She didn't get his name. She didn't get any other details that could possibly identify him. They went through that process. They had me. Lucky fuckers. Growing up, this might take you by surprise, I was actually very accepted for the most part. I felt very included through most of my childhood, and if I was secluded, it was not because of my family situation. It wasn't because of my parents. It was probably just because they were rude. And I was very lucky that I had a really good support system of people, because my parents were friends with so many people, so I grew up with the same crowd. Now, I did have some pretty rough comments here and there, but my parents were always really open and educated me on family, and that we happened to have a different or an unconventional family, especially at the time, because this was the early 2000s. Those comments kind of just water off a duck's back, you know? I wasn't worried. When I got to high school, because people were so brutal, I decided to be a little bit more scarce when I was giving new people information about my life. And that's not because I was embarrassed or anything like that, but you don't know what beliefs someone has, and you don't know if someone is religious and is super against the gays. Oh no, the world's gonna end because the gays. Such a joke. I just decided that that would be information for people that decided to become close to me, who were gonna come to my house, and so then I would give them the information then. And so I did this sporadically as I made new friends or I had different people enter my life. And every time it was never an issue. That was always super relieving to me. I don't regret withholding that information. I actually prefer to do it, and I still do it in my day-to-day life, because I don't think that everyone needs to know everything about you at any given time, especially people that you're not close with. It was nothing to do with embarrassment or shame. That was just my own personal choice. So then about midway through high school, I actually got a boyfriend by some ungodly miracle, right? He actually had 2 mums as well. Flies! So I met him at a show called, if you're from New South Wales, you know this, called School Spectacular. I just saw him and I saw how tall he was and I was like, he's cute, I'm going for it, let's go. And it just so happened that he also had 2 mums. So that was a really lovely experience for me, having my first love, having the same family situation that I did, also meant that he understood. So that's kind of my experience growing up. So another important aspect of my life is not knowing my relatives, right? And I actually have a whole story. My whole life I didn't know who my father was. I didn't have any other siblings growing up with my 2 mums, but I found out who my father was, and I found a bunch of other siblings from all over the world, and my parents were very open and willing for me to explore that, and they knew that it wouldn't taint on our relationship. It was purely out of interest and openness and wanting to create a extended family, which I did. That's a whole nother story. I'll do a whole nother video about that. Even had I never met them, that aspect had never bothered me. If I never found out if I had any other siblings, if I never found out who my donor was or anyone on my donor's side of the family, I wouldn't have been worried. And I'm going to tell you why. So in my experience growing up, my family was very open and honest about how I was created. It helped me, and it helped me shape my perspective. And I think that if you hide the truth from your children, it is actually going to harm you more than it's going to help you. Kids will grow up confused and they will resent you for not being honest. As I started discovering some of my siblings, I found out I had a sister through Ancestry DNA. She was related to my brother. So she was created on that donor side, according to the DNA websites. She had no idea. So she was very withdrawn because she was not aware of this. And this is not something that you want to find out when you're in your 20s, that your father is not actually your father, or that you have siblings on the other side of the world. It can be a very jarring experience. It's going to be really dependent on the way that you raise your child and the beliefs that you give them and how honest you are with them. And because I was raised in a family that told me everything and were completely honest, of course I was curious, but I knew that I already had my family. It's the same with adopted children. When the adopted parents are honest and they create a safe and supportive household environment and provide that love in that family, the biological side matters a lot less, because all that biology tells us is that we are genetically related. Family is a feeling. Family is something that you create and that you nurture. A lot of parents are also scared that their kid will get bullied. And I think naturally with parental instincts, you're going to be so protective of your child. No matter what you do, you can't prevent things happening to them outside of your care. And I know that that's hard to hear, but that's the fact. All that you can do is provide them with a safe household and love and support to be there for them when they go through the struggles. You can't prevent the struggles. And honestly, whether a kid's raised with LGBTQ parents or not, they can probably still be bullied. Kids will bully other kids for anything. I once got bullied because I came to school with my hair curly. And I don't want the fact that parents are in LGBTQ relationships to stop them from creating a child if that's something that they really, really want. So, with all that being said, that is my experience. I thought it was good to make an updated new video. If you have more questions though, I'm happy to do a follow-up. I'm happy to do a part 2 because I probably didn't answer everything in this video. Love you lots. Go make some happy babies.